We'll have like the pre-show, right? Like the what do they call it? Like the cold open. This is our
Yeah.
cold open. We haven't yet played the intro theme. We should get an intro theme.
Maybe you can license some of Vinny's music.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that, like commissioning. Can you like do a cover of the Seinfeld theme or something? That'd be pretty funny. I'm gonna turn chat up. We gotta. Oh, where's Nick?
Where is Nick?
Where is Nick? Let's see who else wants to get in on book club. I use Twitch like so infrequently, but I swear every time I go on there, they've redone the layout. Take me to my channel, please. Please, for the love of God. Channel. There we go.
Chanel.
Channel. Alright, how do I pop the fucking chat out? I used to know where the button was. Then they moved the button. Channel. There we go. And now I don't. Now I don't know where it is.
Such is life.
Pop. No. No. I want to pop out the chat. Collapse. No. What? There used to just be a pop-out chat button.
You know Pathfinder 2 is a good system because a spyglass is only worth 20 gold pieces
What?
and not fucking
They
1,000.
crashed the economy.
Well, yes, have you noticed how relatively cheap all magic items are?
Have I told you my theory about magical inflation?
You haven't. What is your
Alright,
magical
this will be a good
inflation theory?
opening while we wait for Brandon to get
And
here. And for me
I
to find
assume
the
this
pop-out button.
is economic
Yeah,
inflation and
okay,
not...
okay. So, here's the deal, right? I actually started writing up a paper on this and then got distracted by modeling spaceships.
Oh, as if you were like a wizard writing up a study.
Yeah. Yeah,
In
okay.
world.
So when you make a sword, right? That sword's price is determined by the supply of the swords and the demand of the swords.
Yes.
And the supply of the swords is constrained by the fact that a sword eventually breaks or rusts or whatever, right?
Or someone just leaves it in dungeon and no one ever picks it up again.
Yeah. Or it just ends up in like your sock drawer, whatever. Because they have a lifespan, right?
Yes.
But a magic item will last forever.
Effectively.
So the supply goes up much quicker, and if you assume that the ratio of sword makers to sword users remains constant even as population grows, pretty quickly, relatively speaking, the price of swords should drop to, like, just above the cost to make them. There's not going to be a very profitable margin.
Yes.
I swear to God. How do I pop... Wait, can't you just type /chat to the end of the... Oh my God, I'm so smart. Oh, look at that production value. Okay. The other thing, right, I was thinking about this, right? So, if you spend 1,000 gold to buy a sword, a magic sword, right? You've spent 1,000 gold, and you have paid to transfer the ownership of one magic sword to another person. When you make a magic sword, not only are you transferring that magic sword to someone else, you've increased permanently the number of magic swords in the world by 1. Surely that's got to count for something. So, I could conceivably see a setting / system in which the cost to create a magic item is greater than the cost to purchase the magic item. Because just purchasing
If there's just so many swords out there, no one needs to make new ones because there's just so many.
Right.
And it's not profitable to make new ones.
Exactly. Because this whole thing started because Morg was complaining, like, why isn't it cheaper for me to just craft whatever I want? I was explaining because, like, economic theory, yo. Anyway, where the hell is Brandon?
So I do actually like that, like from the perspective of transit. So say in the world of Galarian, assuming you take the world of Galarian for itself.
Is that your homebrew setting?
No, that's the world that Pathfinder
Oh,
is based in, at least
I
by
have no
default.
idea.
I think that's what it's called. Point is, like in original first edition Pathfinder, uh, at high levels, you can get pretty fucking powerful in terms of just pouring out ridiculous amounts of magical equipment if you are focused on being a magic item crafter.
Right. Yeah, that's why I don't like having
And
crafters
you
in the
always
party.
have
Because, like, that's
you
all they
always
do.
have these
They
theory
craft.
builds. You have these theory builds that are like crash the magical economy in 3 easy steps. Well, Pathfinder 2 essentially has said, yes, you can. That has happened.
Yeah.
Well done. You've crashed the magical item economy.
So basically, my theory, my thesis is that any setting in which magic items are significantly cheaper to make than they are to purchase, and where they do not have a lifespan, the price of the magic items must be currently dropping. Now that doesn't,
If not bottomed out.
if not bottomed out, right? And the case study, right, on this is the item prices in old school RuneScape. So, in old school RuneScape, basically, people they smith tons, it's like in Skyrim, right? You know how you smith like 1,000,000 daggers to get your levels up?
Yep.
You just sit there and you just smith, and you smith, and you smith, and you smith, and like the first time it's a gear upgrade, you're like, okay, cool. But after that, like, you've got 999 of these things.
And there's no longer enough money in the shopkeepers' shops
Nobody wants
to pay
to buy it.
for
Everyone's
all
like,
your
well,
shit.
I already have a sword. I'm not going to buy a sword. So the prices would have all gone down to 1, and there actually are a lot of items that now have a price of 1 coin. But they put alchemy in the game. So items have an alchemy value, and you can cast alchemy on them and turn them into coins. And this puts, which is nice, because when you want like enemies to drop gear, you know that the gear will never drop below this price. And if you look at Brandon, come back.
Brandon.
He's probably like messing with his audio settings. So I don't know.
Hey.
Anyway, yeah. So pretty much every item, pretty much any item that's not super rare, pretty quickly bottoms out at its alchemy price, as far as like gear.
And that is effectively a natural price for
Yeah,
it.
because it's never going to be
It's never going to be worth less than its
what it could be
objective
turned into
value.
Coins, exactly. Yeah. Anyway,
Because
Brandon's here now, right?
Yeah, my computer forgot how to open PDF.
Yeah, cool. Alright, that concludes the cold open! Welcome to IAA Book Club Ulysses Part 3. Covering Chapter 7 and a little bit of Chapter 8, because I got bored and didn't finish it.
Yeah.
So, let's get right into it. Chapter 7 is called Aeolus. A thing I had to look up afterwards because my PDF doesn't show me the chapter names.
So, Alex, what is this chapter a reference to?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. I was afraid I would just have to sit here forever. So, Aeolus is the Greek god of the winds. So, in the Odyssey, Odysseus sailing back, right? And he keeps running into these terrible storms. And Zeus is like, I'll help you out, buddy. And he directs Odysseus to the island, which is called Aeolia, the island of Aeolus. And Aeolus is like, hey man, let me help you out. I'm gonna take all of the bad wind and put them in a sack. And I'll give you the sack. And this way...
Oh, is this where...
This is
Is
like,
this
yeah,
where,
this
like,
is
the whole
origin
legend of
bag
the wind into the bag?
Yeah. So he puts all of the bad wind in the sack, and then he's like, here, take the sack, and now, there's only good wind left, and you can sail real good. And so they start sailing, right? And then the other sailors, they see this sack that Odysseus had said, like, don't any of you fuckers open this sack. And they're like, well, it's got to be treasure, right? So they open it up, and then all the bad winds come out, and the bad winds blow them all the way back to the island of Aeolia, which is a metaphor for how... Yeah, I don't know. I thought about this for a while. I got nothing. Brandon, you got any ideas?
Right, in the context of the original myth or in the context of Ulysses?
In the context of Ulysses, what does Aeolus have to do with the plot of Chapter 7?
Well, I'm going to go with the fact that Diplo Bloom starts in one office, goes to another office,
He does.
and then he has to go back to the first office because they counter-offered. That's
Yeah.
it. It's
Exhilarating.
That's a good point.
exhilarate. Yeah, he's doing his very boring job of trying to sell ads, trying to get his ads printed, and then making sure that they buy it for the correct amount of time. This was much more important in the before times, kids, when information was printed on sheets of paper and sometimes went out twice a day.
Crazy.
You had to get all this stuff out like before printing time.
Yeah, so in order to understand the plot of Chapter 7, you need to know that there used to be this thing called a newspaper, where they would take the news and print it on the paper, right? Because I guess
Barbaric.
this was back when all you had were like the Nokia brick phones, and you couldn't get the internet on them.
Yeah.
And so Joyce's job is to... I'm not exactly sure about the business arrangements, but from what I gather, he brokers the placing of the advertisements in the newspapers. Sorry, not Joyce. Bloom.
Okay.
Yeah, so Bloom, Leopold Bloom, our boy Leopold Bloom, will...
Mr. No Thoughts Head
No thoughts,
Empty, as
head
we
empty.
have
Actually, so
established.
many thoughts. So many thoughts, all of which are incorrect. So he will go to a client and be like, hey, you want an ad? Here's the rate, and then he'll go to the newspapers and be like, okay, so I got a guy who's offering this rate, and he takes some small cut of this.
Yeah, he's
And
a middleman.
he's got probably the most cleverest advertisement that I have ever heard. Okay, so there's this guy, right? His name is Keys. His last name Keys, spelled Keyes. And he has this like wine store, I think, or like a liquor store kind of deal. And he wants an
Shop.
ad called House of Keys. No, House of Keys is the lower house of the Parliament of the Isle of Man, but it's spelled keys like keys, right? Like Keys. And the symbol for the House of Keys is like two crossed keys in a circle. Get it? Because, like, keys.
Huh.
Yeah, like named after the thing, presumably. I don't know. Yeah, because, like, they held their first parliamentary session in the locksmith's office, and they called it the House of Keys. I assume. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, the guy, Mr. Keys, is like, well, what if we reference that? And, because when all the rich, bougie Manx tourists come over, they'll be like, House of Keys? Hey, that's like our parliament. Let's buy our wine there.
Yeah.
And so Bloom
I
is like...
recognize the thing.
Yeah. Oh, brain see familiar symbol. Purchase
Yeah.
goods and services. So
Yeah,
Keys
Funko
is
Pop
trying to
logic.
explain Funko Pop. This episode brought to you by Funko Pop.
Good God.
Oh, would you buy a Leopold Bloom Funko Pop?
Because it's so fucking obscure, I might actually just to like
Obscure.
have it sitting on his
Ulysses
desk.
is one of the most famous books. Anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah, but no, right.
who
Only
famous
if it
books
counts
that
with
no
like
one
a
reads it.
detachable kidney.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So Ulysses, our boy Leopold Ulysses Bloom is trying to sell this idea to his boss, who is like not his boss, but like the head of that newspaper, who's very unimpressed. And literally, Joyce describes in detail about how the boss just stares blankly at him and like scratches his armpit and just kind of like nods. Anyway, Yeah,
So great.
So Bloom goes on and on about how clever this idea is with the keys in the circle, right? Because Keys, like House of Keys. Because the guy's name is Keys, you get it? And the boss is like, yeah, okay. If we'll do a 3-month contract. And so Bloom runs off to negotiate with the client and whatever.
Yeah.
And then...
More wordplay.
Brandon, would you like to explain the state of the newspaper industry at this time?
Right. In the before times, and this is the extremely before times.
Yeah, this is...
Making the
Remind me again, what is... This is set in
1904.
Yeah.
So they had movable type. They had industrialized movable type. Remember, the machinery of the printing press would have taken up multiple floors in a building the size of a city block. And like this is Victorian time, so like all of the ropes and pulleys and things are all exposed, spinning at hundreds of RPM, so it's a great way to lose your fingers.
Mm-hmm.
And like
Don't lick.
lots of hot lead and like arsenic ink or whatever is just flying everywhere.
Also, don't lick.
Yep.
That's the reason you should not lick your newspapers. If you talk to older relatives and they say that's why you shouldn't wrap your fish in a newspaper.
Yeah, I was gonna
that's
say,
why.
didn't they used to wrap their food in newspaper?
Yeah, poor people would have to do that because they couldn't afford nice paper. There's a reason you also would wipe your ass with newspaper or the Sears catalog. But there isn't time to explain the Sears catalog. It's too far gone. Yeah, so you've got.
I just say the death of Sears was probably for me at least, the most you fucking idiots moment.
The loss of Sears will be our generation's burning of the Library of Alexandria.
Yeah.
No, actually, that's GeoCities going down. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So the printing press is the size of a building. So all of the news, or there might even be multiple presses, but the amount of industrial equipment, it's in one building and it's there. So all the newspapers have their offices nearby to the printer, so they can, again, have their, depending on how it was set up, they might even be like above the floor of the printers, and then they get sent down to the printer. So they're all there, and they all go use the same printing presses because even back then, it was you can't make money selling newspapers.
yeah, all the money came from the advertisement.
All the money came from the advertising, which is why people like Bloom are very, very important to the business, even though nobody likes them.
Yep.
Still, this is a better ad situation than it is now because here there's only one middleman, Leopold Bloom. Now, with the magic of targeted advertising, there are 1 billion middlemen between advertiser and you. This is why the rate of profit of newspapers has declined over time. And so they are all right there. Leopold Bloom, as admin, would just run around to all the offices who are right next to the printing to hopefully get it down. It's mentioned later about, get it up for the evening edition. Because that was a thing back then. Newspapers would print twice a day. There was a morning edition for people. Yeah. They would do a morning edition for people commuting to work, and then an evening edition for people on the way back and for updates. Plus a special Sunday edition. That was separate from the regular newspaper. It was incredible. If you want to learn more about this, you could listen to another podcast. If you type it in to youtube.com, well, there's your problem, space, print media. There you go. If you're interested in how things used to be. And speaking of the news, what Joyce does is interspace. He has fun with his typewriter and puts faux newspaper headlines in the middle of the events, sort of like top them up and provide witty commentary.
Yeah, but they're only tangentially related.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it.
It's
You know what it reminds me of?
and...
Joyce is referencing what was a very popular anime at the time of this work's writing, the Monogatari series, which will kind of just flash text for a few frames in the middle of scenes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, he'll just interrupt stuff to be like, bam, here's a headline. And sometimes, or it's like, it's not even real headlines. I wonder if it's like Joyce imagining headlines, not Joyce, Bloom imagining headlines, because like sometimes it's
I'm not
related to what
sure.
he's thinking. I don't know, because some of them, some of them will say like,
They're all like sideways commentary and like glances at things like some of the first ones where it's like, oh, there's a guy working away, and then there's a headline, how great Daily Organ is turned out, and it's about, and it's making fun of the fact that, oh, he got funeraled, so haha, the Daily Organ. They're just, get it? Body's full of organs. Ugh. It's very sort of sideways or one-liners, or sometimes they're directly related to what he's doing. Like there's one that says, "We see the canvasser at work,"
and then
Leopold Bloom on his way to the next newspaper's office to try to sell ads.
But then you've got this one that just goes like, only once more that soap. That happens like right before Leopold Bloom remembers that there's soap in his pocket.
Yes.
Why is there soap in his pocket?
Well, he had gone to the chemist that morning to get
His wife some soap.
yeah, to get his wife. Well, he was picking up medicine, and then while he was there, they had soap, and he got a bar of soap, and then had just stuffed it in his coat pocket. And then I guess
They
to take
didn't
it out.
drop it off when he came back
No.
home.
No.
It's a bar of soap.
Not a very smart man.
Yeah.
Like there's, like when the typesetters are made, again, this isn't the instant type, so they're having to manually shape the lead type by hand, hot lead type. So it's like orthographical, because orthography is how you cut the shape of letters. It's like,
And then there's this one that just says sad.
yeah,
One word.
that one was that, and the other one about the mildly disquietus ladies. Those two got me, because for one, sad, Joyce was somehow able to use the lathe of heaven to see into the future and predict current time. These times, registered trademark of right now.
I like the other one too. Clever, comma, very. Like, yes, Joyce, we know you like to think of yourself. Very clever.
Again.
And then they've got the KMRIA right before his bot. Well, I don't want to spoil that part.
That's the style of this chapter. Is you get a few bits of prose, giant, witty headline. Well, witty adjacent.
Diminished digits prove too titillating for Fisky Frumps. And Wimbles, Flo Wangles. Yet can you blame them? That sounds like one of those letters that, like, the serial killers send the newspapers.
Zodiac shit.
Virgilian, says Pedagogue. Sophomore plumps for old man Moses.
Are we saying Leopold Bloom is the Zodiac killer?
I'm just saying that I've never seen the Zodiac Killer and Leopold Bloom in the same room.
Like when back with the typesetters, he's like reads it backwards first quickly. He does it. Must require some practice. That, and then he wrote backwards. Man, which is
Wait,
Patrick.
does he?
Dignam.
What?
Yeah, he actually writes Patrick Dignam's his name backwards because the typesetter can't. Because remember, it's reverse type,
right?
So it's
right.
printed normally. So he has to learn how to read backwards. So he has fun with his typewriter.
Do you know what page that is? Do you have that up right now?
It is 218. Very, right there, in between the talking about the feast of Passover and the.
Oh yeah, I do remember that. Hang on, can I get this up on the screen?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, a man did sit that, and then he just starts going off thinking about Passover, and he gets his Bible facts wrong, probably. Even he gets confused about Passover and Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat or whatever.
Let me crop this a little better. I swear, new OBS, despite working better than old OBS, is like much harder. Where is the crop? Crop. Nope. Transform. Edit transform. Crop. Okay. And then you just get to guess the numbers because there's no crop handles. Okay, good. Okay, anyway. Got that set up. Whatever. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, so you got this backward stuff. He does the backward stuff so that the first thing in the chapter that really caught my attention Let me pull this up here. So Bloom, or for once I actually mean Joyce. Joyce does some fun with the prose here. I mean, he's always having fun with the prose, but
Yeah.
so he starts with in the heart of the Hibernian metropolis, whatever the hell that means. Is Hibernian a real word? Hibernian.
This is gonna be one of those things you type it in, and it's gonna be like Hibernia.
Oh, this is a place in
Parentheses,
Scotland. That's not a fancy word.
Well, Hibernian of or concerning Ireland.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
Latin name for Ireland. Hibernia.
He's gone.
So it would be like calling England Avalon.
From Latin Hibernia,
Sure.
alteration of Iverna
so
from
the
Greek
opening headline,
of
in the
Celtic.
heart of the Hibernian metropolis, just means in the middle of the Irish city.
Yeah, he's
Clever.
he's having fun
Clever.
with his thesaurus.
Before Nelson's pillar trams slowed, shunted, changed trolleys started for Blackrock, Kingstown, Dalkey, Clonsky, Rathgar and Tarringer, Palmerston Park and Upper Rathmines, Sandymount Greens, Rathmines, Ringsend and Sandymount Tower, Harold's Cross. The Horace Dublin United Tramway Company's timekeeper bawled them off. Rathgar and Tarringer. Come on, Sandymount Creek. Kind of sounds Sandymount Green. Kind of sounds like a horse race.
Yeah, that sounds like they're doing sports betting.
Was he reading train stops?
Yeah.
Okay.
There are tram stops. But
Trams.
yeah, just reading them off. And then there's this fun line here. Gross-booted draymen rolled barrels dull thudding out of Prince's stores and bumped them up on the brewery float. On the brewery float, bumped dull thudding barrels rolled by gross-booted draymen out of Prince's stores. So you've got that, like, that's mirrored, right? The word order is mirrored. And then later on, Joyce is actually mirroring the name because Bloom is thinking about how the guys that do the typesetting, right? They gotta do the words backwards. So that's just I want to say it's a theme, but like I think there's only those two instances. I don't know.
He just has more fun playing with the idea of how a newspaper works. Because I guess Joyce was like thinking about newspapers when he wrote this chapter. Because there's a bit later where some of the other guys are making fun of one of the typesetter's obsession with spell checking, and then Joyce goes all in with doing some bad spelling to show some of the problems, like
Oh yeah.
proof fever. Martin Cunningham forgot to give us his spelling bee conundrum this morning. It is amusing to view the unpar 1R alleled embara 2Rs,
Yeah.
is it? Double S mint of A harass pedlar while gauging the symmetry with a YE of appealed her under a cemetery wall. Silly, isn't it? Cemetery put in a silly, isn't it? Yeah, I'm fucking rolling on the floor laughing, Joyce.
Hilarious.
Peak comedy. Cemetery
Yeah,
put in,
see.
of course, on account of the symmetry. Oh.
It is amusing to view the unpair 1R, alleled embara 2Rs, is it? Double
Yeah.
S meant of a harassed peddler while gauging out the symmetry of a Y of a peeled pear under a cemetery wall. What does that mean? Peeled the symmetry with a Y. Oh, okay, it's the symmetry. Wait. Yeah. The symmetry of a peeled pear under a cemetery wall. Anyway, yeah, Joyce is just having a good time.
Yeah.
What is this? That caught my attention when I was first reading. I'm like, is that supposed to just be like an onomatopoeia? What is that supposed to mean? I'm gonna Google that. Oh no.
See his fizz then.
So
The nethermost
fizz.
deck of the first.
Actually, I remember seeing fizz in a book when I was like 10. And I was like, what the heck is a fizz? Fizz, short for physiology, is slang for face. Yeah.
Mhm.
See his face.
And then he sort of describes the machinery working with the nethermost deck of the first machine, and flyboard is just a bit of the machine. And then it starts now he's just doing a little bit of onomatopoeia with how the machinery is moving and packing and getting the papers done. And it just, yeah, more jokes about the news business and the hustle and bustle. The pacing is still good here, mostly because it's just in very short chunks, and the fact
Yeah.
that everyone's trying to do jokes, and then we got one word sentences like balls bridge.
Balls
Sure,
bridge.
okay,
Yeah.
balls
so
bridge.
so
Sure.
Bloom.
Yeah.
Keep
Bloom is
doing that.
Bloom is doing this errand. Look, they're all self-inserts, okay? Bloom is doing this
Maybe.
errand, and what actually he does is he just hangs out with the boys.
Yeah.
Hanging out with the boys.
And by boys, I mean our boy, Stephen Daedalus, who,
Ah.
if you recall, in Chapter 2, was given a letter by his boss, the principal, about foot and mouth disease, with the instructions to bring it to some of the newspapers to get him to print it.
So our storylines converge here.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yep. So Bloom bumps into Daedalus, who was also in there at the office, and the reactions upon meeting these two people are very different, right? So Bloom is like this middle-aged man, he's wealthy, he's got this hot wife, but everyone just kind of looks down on him. No one really laughs at his jokes. Whenever he like suggests something, they all just kind of go, yeah, whatever. And he doesn't really get a warm, enthusiastic welcome. And then Stephen Daedalus comes in, who's this young, hip, cool college student, or
Strapping young lad.
yeah, strapping young lad, right? And everyone's like, "Wow, Stephen! Hey, we're trying to come up with something clever to put in the newspaper. You want to help us brainstorm?" And it's because secretly Stephen Daedalus is the actual main character of the story. Bloom is really like a narrative device to carry the camera around.
He's the first person perspective for Daedalus's actual story.
Right. Kind of like how the Sherlock Holmes stories are actually told from the perspective of Watson,
Yeah.
but not actually like that, But it's a similar style. Anyway, so there's a professor there.
They quote more Greek stuff because Xenophon looking upon Marathon. Yeah, it's more Greek stuff.
And there's this other guy, J.J. O'Malley, who was introduced as J.J. O'Malley and then referred to throughout the chapter as J.J. O'Malley.
Okay.
Which is, it's fun to say, J.J. O'Malley. Anyway, so...
J. Jonah O'Malley.
Yeah, Jojo O'Malley. So he's in there, and when he walks in, they're making fun of this pretentious speech that was published in the newspaper, and how silly the wording is, and they're all pretending like it's killing them. We got this passage here.
Yeah, they're making fun of him for like, haha, this guy's just pretending to be smart, unlike us, real smart people.
Ned Lambert, seated on the table, read on. Or again, note the meanderings of some purling rill as it babbles on its way, though quarreling with the stony obstacles, to the tumbling waters of Neptune's blue domain, mid mossy banks, fanned by gentlest zephyrs, played on by the glorious sunlight, or 'neath the shadows cast o'er its pensive bosom, by the overarching leafage of the giants of the forest. And they all are like, ha ha, this is so dumb. Which I think is kind of funny because Joyce himself writes a lot of pretentious, overly flowery bullshit at times. So he's kind of like lampooning himself, and really, so Joyce was really popular because he pioneered this more modernist style. So he's ragging on like the romantic kind of language,
Purple prose.
Even though he himself also makes use of it, but so that's kind of fun. What the hell does Xenophon looking over Marathon have to do? Didn't
Well,
they
Marathon
mention
is a
that?
place in Greece.
Didn't they talk about that in an earlier? Hang on, I'm gonna Control F for Xenophon.
Xenophon. I don't know. This could be a reference to
No, I swear
Host's
they.
favorite video game, Kingdom Hearts. But I think Xenophon, Marathon City in Greece.
I thought it was a race.
Yes, he goes to Marathon. The runner goes from the battlefield to Marathon, and that's why it is called running a marathon. To deliver the news upon the battle.
Get it.
Yeah.
I did actually know that. I want to make it clear to the audience that I am incredibly smart and well educated, and I am only doing a bit.
Alex,
We went to school.
Alex, quick aside, does your character have medicine?
I haven't made my character yet.
Will he? She?
Do we need medicine? I'll take medicine if we need to take medicine.
Alright. Vinny was just asking.
Well, Viddy should do it in Twitch chat. Oh wait. Don't do it in Twitch chat. I closed Twitch chat.
Oh no.
Oh no, sorry Luis. Minecraft stream, we'll do a reading of Minecraft the novel once we finish Ulysses.
Oh god, that exists. Yeah.
Does it? I actually had no idea.
Wait, there is? What the shit?
There is officially licensed Minecraft novels.
Minecraft
Ew.
novel.
I think it was written by the same guy who did World War Z. There's a ton of
Minecraft the Island. Wait, the same guy that did World War Z?
Yeah.
World War...
There's a ton of unofficial stuff. I remember years ago watching a video about a guy who read a bunch of these video game books.
Shit.
And there's like a series of Minecraft novels where they never say the word Minecraft, and it's like about a bully who gets sucked into Minecraft and he learns to not be a bully anymore. It's written by the dad.
Same guy that
Wait, it's
did
an
World War
isekai?
Z also did the Minecraft book series.
Yeah.
Oh, he did some of the books. Okay.
Yeah, he did some of them. I mean, hey, he's got to eat.
Yeah. Doesn't he get royalties
Residuals?
from the... Yeah.
Maybe he wanted to put an extension on his house. He's doing the Michael
Well, he
Caine
should've
and
just
Jaws
done
for
what
the Revenge.
the Catalyst guys do, and just embezzle funds from the company. Oh my god, the Minecraft books are half off.
No, please, there's not much room left on the shelf.
Oh, it literally says by the author of World War Z.
Write the Minecraft book for
official
kids.
Product.
Yeah. See,
Look at that. Look at that.
and that's what the kids are reading. Allegedly, I don't know. Instead of this high quality literature, if you gave this to a 12-year-old, I think they would actually have a pretty great time.
The island.
If you told them there was like a fun mystery buried inside of Ulysses, and if they figured it out, they got a prize. Maybe they get like the Pizza Hut reading program instead of like, if you finish this one, you get an entire large pizza for you.
Oh lord. Anyway, so they're talking about how this speech is dumb, and I think someone says something to the effect of, I say I think because it's so hard to follow the flow of conversation because it's constantly interrupted by Bloom
Stuff.
thinking about things, and then Joyce just writing about random stuff. And I think one of them says like, well, the speeches, they're always better when you hear them in person. And
Yeah, and they'll run this point home, and Bloom comes in. He's like, "Oh, what is it, Mr. Bloom asked. A recently discovered fragment of Cicero, Professor McHugh answered with pomp of tone. Our lovely land. Short but to the point. Whose land? Most pertinent question." And then he cuts into the speech, because Bloom doesn't realize that he's not being literal when he says a fragment of Cicero, the great Roman orator.
yeah, well, yeah, the joke is like, hey, we discovered a lost work of Cicero. It would be kind of like if I read like a dumb thing on fanfiction.net and it was like, wow, look at this long lost work of Shakespeare, right?
Yeah. Who knows? He might have. I mean, most of his plays were adaptations, unauthorized adaptations at that. So, technically, in under modern copyright law, if you were to apply that retroactively, most of what Shakespeare wrote would have been unauthorized rewrites.
He was the original Disney.
Yeah, so they talk about this, and then someone goes off on this long retelling of a fantastic speech that they once heard someone give. So
Forget the sad.
Joyce
Sad.
has written about a character
Mhm. Yep.
who talks about a person who gives a speech,
Yep.
and now we
Yep.
are talking about how Joyce
Uh-huh.
wrote about a character who talked about a guy who gave a speech, which I just think is beautiful.
Yes.
Anyway, the speech is about how the Egyptians made fun of the Jews because they were like, your temples,
You suck.
whack. Your slavery, whack. Your gods, whack. Us, we're fresh as fuck. That's basically the plot of the speech. But with obviously the message being, look what happened to the Egyptians, right? Their civilization is gone. Look what happened to the Jews. Let's
Not
just
as
talk about
gone.
the Jews.
Not as gone in 1904.
Yeah, it's so weird seeing them be like, oh, those damn Jews ruin our country, and then go, man, the Jews. What a bunch of people back in the day, huh? Anyway, and the metaphor for this, right, is that the Jews in this speech are the Irish, and the Egyptians are the British. So, you know, they're saying, like, one day the British will be gone,
Yes.
and the Irish will rise up.
He's not wrong. What do you think Brexit is doing?
Yeah. But anyway, and they talk about, yeah, here we go. So they're talking about Rome. Imperial, imperious, imperative. What was their civilization? Vast, I allow, but vile. Cloaca, sewers. The Jews in the wilderness and on the mountaintop said, it is meant to be here. Let us build an altar to Jehovah. The Roman, like the Englishman who follows in his footsteps, brought to every new shore on which he set his foot. In parentheses, on our shore he never set it. Only his cloacal obsession. He gazed about him in his toga, and he said, it is meet to be here. Let us construct a water closet. So, what they're getting at, right, is that the Jews had an obsession with building temples. The Romans, an obsession with building sewers. And then someone makes a joke. Our old ancient ancestors, as we read in the first chapter of Genesis, were partial to the running stream.
Wait, what did you just say?
Guinness.
Guinness.
See, it's
Like the beer.
Oh, I
Guinness
get you're making a
apostrophe S.
pun.
Right. Yeah, it's a pun, right? You know, Genesis. So the joke is like, to the Jews,
Yeah.
their temples; to the Romans, their sewers; to the Irish, their beer.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think possibly just pissing in the river. We get drunk and we piss outside. Who gives a shit?
Now, so here's something that's really funny that I missed until I read the annotations for this. Do you know what cloacal obsession is a reference to?
No, I was deeply confused. I'm like, what does this have to do with lizards?
Well, let me tell you. So, as you're probably aware, Ulysses is not James Joyce's first work. Before this, he wrote the fantastically titled novel, A Portrait of the Author as a Young... Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. So, this
we lost
got
him.
some mixed reviews. Notably, English criticist H.G. Wells had a rather scathing review of A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, who said, quote, Mr. Joyce has a cloacal obsession. He would bring back into the general picture of life aspects which modern drainage and modern decorum have taken out of ordinary intercourse and conversation. So basically, he's saying we built sewers to get rid of our shit, and Joyce has come back and wrote a whole bunch of shit.
Good line, though. As a critic, that's a good line.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good. Well, anyway, Joyce makes a reference to the shitty review of his book, which is
bad
kind
form.
of like.
Bad form. Don't ever do that.
I thought it was really funny. Anyway, this is kind of like one of Joyce's notable contemporaries, the band 100 Gex, who like to repeatedly quote this one shitty review of their album 1000 Gex on Rate Your Music. Very funny.
I swear, yeah, that's bad for me to do that because I distinctly remember. I'm not sure. I can't remember which movie it is, but the director's previous work got thrashed by Siskel and Ebert, so he wrote them into the story and then had them killed off. I think it was M. Night Shyamalan in Lady in the Water. He wrote in a Roger Ebert stand-in and then got him killed off halfway through, which is very petty. If you were an aspiring author, don't do that kind of shit. It makes you look really petty.
Oh, come on, but it's so funny.
That's the thing. The thing is, if you do it well, like Joyce is here, making part of this grand statement about how we live in a society or whatever, it works. If you do it like Mr. Shyamalan, it comes across as really petty because Lady in the Water is not a good movie.
So I should note, by the way, that cloaca is an archaic term for sewer.
Yeah.
Doesn't just refer
This
to
is not referencing the
hole.
the one hole to rule them all, so to speak.
Yeah,
on
it's not that he is
various
obsessed
foul.
with the anatomical cloaca. It's that he is obsessed with the sewers. Or the
public toilet.
Yeah. The reviewer was humorously saying that he has an obsession with sewers and that he just keeps spewing out shit. And in the story, they're literally talking about the obsession that Romans had with bringing plumbing everywhere. And then the whole Guinnesses.
Those
pretty funny.
Romans.
Oh, those Romans, yeah.
Yeah, it sort of keeps going.
Yeah, so there's some other fun stuff here.
We appear to have a guest.
Hey, fellow Booker. Hey, fellow Bookers.
Nick, you made it.
Hello.
Nick, have you done any of the reading?
No, literally none of it.
All right,
Oh,
let me get you caught
cool.
up real quick. Leopold Bloom is at his work. He's supposed to take a. You're breathing in your mic a little bit there, buddy.
Yeah.
I'll hold it further away from my
He's
face.
supposed to take a an advertisement around to some of the local newspapers to get him to run it. And he comes in on a scene where Stephen Daedalus is delivering the letter that his principal wrote for him. And they're making fun of a speech that was printed in the newspaper. Meanwhile,
Alright.
Joyce is doing more fun stuff with his prose. So we got this here. Oh, I should be.
I'm on my phone right now, so I can't actually see anything.
Shame. Well, I'll read it aloud. On swift sail flaming from storm and south, he comes, pale vampire, mouth to my mouth. What is that quoting?
He's quoting a CPR instruction manual.
Wrong answer's all.
No. The lady who they modeled all the CPR dolls after hadn't been drunk out of the Seine in Paris yet. No, seriously.
I know. I know
You
the
know about
story.
the Resuscitation dolls? Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
just a dead woman they pulled out, made a cast her face, and guy was like, "Oh my
Hot.
god, she's beautiful."
Well, also because it was like public domain, because they didn't know who it was, so her family couldn't sue for using their likeness, because no one claimed the body. All right, so I found the thing. Xenophos, blah blah blah, looking at Marathon. So Xenophon was a leader of an exposition. Oh, this is the... I knew it! This is the guy that yelled out, Thalata! Thalata! They talk
Thalata?
about him in like chapter 1 or 2.
Oh, right. That.
With the battle of the Athenians beating the Persians. Anyway, I don't know what they're talking about with the vampire. Let me see if I can find that here. Not seeing it. It's so hard to find anything in the annotations because it refers to like page numbers that are not our page numbers. Like Genesis, Goical Obsession.
I don't think there were really any vampires in Greek mythology.
Yeah. And then, of course, this is introduced by the fake newspaper headline of 3 question marks.
Oh yeah, that was.
I guess.
On the show. Yeah, great
funny
headline here. It's just some question marks. Anyway, yeah. So the conversation goes on. Oh, they make this hilarious joke.
Oh,
So,
epic.
Brandon, you were the one that pointed this out. If you want to
Yes.
do the honors, page 236, right in the middle.
236. Oh boy. So, our poor Stephen Daedalus, being forced to be his boss's errand boy, has brought this wildly anti-Semitic letter about foot and mouth disease to the newspaper to be like, can you just print this guy's op-ed he made me just carry into town? And they look it over and it's like, foot and mouth disease? By Jesus, she had the foot and mouth disease, and no mistake, referring to his wife. Basically, the guy's calling his boss's wife a cow.
Yeah,
Which is
yeah,
just
so,
epic
yeah, the
own.
context a
Just-
couple lines before. I know him, Miles Crawford said, and I knew his wife too. The bloodiest old tartar god ever made.
Yeah, like steak tartare, which is again beef. Yeah, you
Jesus,
just
she had the foot and mouth disease. The joke being that foot and mouth disease is the thing that
Cattle.
horses and cows get.
yeah.
So his wife was a cow.
Roasted,
Pretty funny. And then we got
destroyed.
we meet this character a couple pages before, J.J. O'Malley. O'Malloy? O'Malloy? I don't know. I'm going to say O'Malley.
Promolol.
That Joyce insists on referring to as J.J. O'Malley the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of weird, because, like, he doesn't do that for anyone else. Anyway. Bullock befriending Bard. Here's another fun word. Bullock befriending. Yeah.
Yep. Then they go on talking about some famous Irishmen of yore, history. Maximilian Carl O'Donnell. If this wasn't written by an Irishman featuring Irish characters, I would say this is being stereotypical. But it's not.
So another actually significant thing they talk about here. So, here we go. We were always loyal to lost causes, the professor said. Success for us is the death of the intellect and of the imagination. We were never loyal to the successful. We serve them. I teach the blatant Latin language. I speak the tongue of a race, the acme of whose mentality is the maxim, time is money. Material domination. Dominus. Lord. Where is the spirituality? Lord Jesus? Lord Salisbury? A sofa in a West End club. But the Greek. Kyrie Eliason. So Kyrie Eliason is a,
That's a Kingdom Hearts character, again, to bring that joke back.
it's a Greek prayer. It's a Catholic, or I guess Eastern Orthodox Greek prayer. So what they're saying is that the Romans only cared about making sewers and material domination. But the Greeks, who were subjugated by the Romans, they had this spirituality, and they cite this famous Greek prayer
Yeah.
Again, the analogy being that just as the Romans oppressed the more spiritual Greeks,
English.
the British are oppressing the more spiritual Irish.
Right.
Yeah. And then, cut to this fantastic limerick, which I will now read aloud.
Yeah,
There's a
after
ponderous
referencing one.
pundit McHugh who wears goggles of ebony hue. As he mostly sees double, to wear them why trouble? I can't see the Joe Miller, can you? You get it? You get it? No?
Joe Miller?
You don't get it? Alright, well, I'll explain.
I
So,
don't get it.
Joe Miller was a famous comedian in the 19th century.
Okay.
And he wrote a book of haha epic memes.
Oh my god, he wrote a joke book.
He wrote a joke book.
Whoa.
And so
Whoa.
the joke book kept getting reprinted and reprinted and reprinted. As I'm sure you know, memes have a limited lifespan. So
Yes.
you had all these books of what were now very old, stale, corny jokes. So someone would say, in response to a bad joke, that's a real Joe Miller. So,
Seinfeld base
meaning
plays
a dumb,
ironically.
cheesy punchline. So, the end of the last line of the limerick goes, I can't see the Joe Miller, can you? Basically,
Where's the joke?
where's the punchline? Where?
Not funny. Didn't
So
laugh.
So it's one of those limericks in which the punchline is that, or
There is no
it's a
punchline.
joke where like the guy is at the party, and he goes to the punchline. There is no punchline, right? So completely went over my head. I had no idea who Joe Miller was.
Because the sick reference is completely lost on
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
To be fair, you have to have a very high IQ to understand.
And I wouldn't have
jokes.
even been able to Google it because Joe Miller is such a common name.
Yeah, it's really just like basic English
Yeah. So okay. So
name.
yeah, I found the actual guy on the Wikipedia. So Joe Miller, he wrote a book titled Joe Miller's Jests, which was
Of course.
published in 1739.
Oh my god.
Stand-up
This is
comedian to me, vaudeville act.
Vintage memes. Yeah.
Well aged.
When
So-
was the printing?
Sense of
So
wine.
any right, and because this quickly became like public domain.
Fucking pre-American Revolution jokes.
Yes. So at the time, the Joe Miller's Jest book was almost 200 years old. So
That's way older than the oldest old memes.
yeah. No.
Yeah, like imagine
Yeah.
making a meme today that had that kind of lifespan.
So let me read you some of these.
Oh, we're getting samples? Alright.
How are these bad jokes? These are fucking hilarious. Alright, so
Well,
here's
hit me
a
with
classic
one.
joke. This is joke number 239 from Joe Miller's
Ow.
Jests.
Out of how many?
247 in the first
Okay.
book, which is not that many for a joke. Because
Yeah.
these are like
Yeah, they
only
have
one
so
or
many
two lines.
letters
Alright, you
in the
ready?
printing.
You ready?
Yeah.
A
hit me.
famous teacher of arithmetic who had long been married without being able to get his wife with child. One said to her, Madam, your husband is an excellent arithmetician. Yes, she replies, only he can't multiply. Get it? Because she can't get pregnant with his kid?
You wrote a book of dad jokes.
Yes! Yeah, so this is the...
I know this track because I once was gifted a joke book from like the 60s for kids called Barrel O Chuckles. And it had all shit like this. Like
Yeah,
one of the epic pranks in the book was like cut up a piece of paper, put it on your friend's hands, and say, "Give me $5 and I can blow one piece of paper away without blowing the others." And what you do is after you give them the $5, rapidly grab their hands, blow the one piece of paper off, and then sprint.
Yeah.
That's the joke.
Yep.
Stealing money.
Hilarious. Here's another one. You ready? This is
Yes,
joke
please,
99.
God.
These are the, I assume, the gems.
Yeah, the
Because these are
Fortnite
the
Funny Volume
selected
12.
quotes on the Wikipedia article. A lady's age happening to be questioned. She affirmed she was but 40 and called upon a gentleman that was in company for his opinion. Cousin, said she, do you believe I am in the right when I say I am but 40? Ought not to dispute it, madam, replied he, for I have heard you say it so these 10 years. So you can see why Joe Miller would become synonymous with bad jokes. Now, these are presumably a little fresher.
I was gonna say, because like, I'm turning 40 for the 10th year in a row is a joke that has absolutely been used on like sitcoms when they're making fun of like the mother-in-law character. Like, and I thought it was just a stale joke that like for my parents' generation. No, it's just a stale joke from continental Europe.
Oh yeah,
from pre-Napoleon.
My mom still says that she's celebrating her 28th birthday for the Xth time, right? Like these.
Yeah, this is a joke that was like the first thing they printed out when they invented the printing press.
Yeah, jokes were invented by Joe Miller in the year 1739. We haven't gotten any new ones since then.
He was the dang old joker.
Did he make that as a sarcastic quip earlier in the week in general?
Oh yeah, humor was invented. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then they do more references. The thing is, right, the conversation gets harder to follow in this chapter because they start referencing conversations they had before Bloom showed up to hear them.
Bloom just barged in on a bunch of people that were already talking.
Sell ads.
And they just
like ads on regular websites.
Talking about, So fun fact, according to the Wikipedia article for Joe Miller, they note that he was referenced in James Joyce's Ulysses, which is pretty funny. Also funny, I was looking this up. So there's a professor who's part of this conversation, and at one point he pulls some dental floss out of his like coat pocket and flosses his unbrushed teeth, which is like kind of funny.
But okay.
Like, he doesn't brush his teeth, but he flosses, which is a little weird. Anyway, so I was like, how long has dental floss been around? Was that a common thing back then? And I looked it up. So dental floss.
Probably horsehair.
No, they did not use horsehair.
Worse or better?
Dental floss was invented in, where are my notes? Like 18. Here we go. No, not the dance. So the concept was invented in 1819, but it was not commercially available until 1882, and then in 1898, the more modern the waxed silk dental floss was patented. Anyway.
Still, very gross.
Ulysses
do this.
Was one of the first written works to depict the use of dental floss.
Groundbreaking.
And remember, this was written in 1920, in the late 1910s.
Serialized 1918 to 1920, yeah. So, set in 1904. Now, it's entirely possible that dental floss was rather popular back then, and just people didn't write about characters flossing their teeth.
Because why the fuck would they?
Yeah.
Well, this is James Joyce, the man who wrote 3 pages about his titular character taking a dump.
Yeah, like, there's slice of life, then there's this.
Then there's Bloom strains and grunts as he squeezes out another fat, steaming log.
Yeah. And then we get to the bit where the editor wants Steven to write
Yeah, so the whole
Makes
point
more
of this
references.
chapter is to show Stephen Daedalus in an indirect way. So they're kind of foils in a way, right? So Leopold Bloom is this painfully uncool, unpopular, boring, bland, middle-aged man who's on an errand to get an ad run approved. And he bumps into Stephen Daedalus, who is hip and young and cool and popular, and Daedalus, or Bloom walks in, and everyone's just talking, and they don't even really acknowledge him, and they just keep on going with their conversation. But Stephen Daedalus comes in, and immediately they're like, "Hey, Stephen, how's it going, man? How you been? Hey, we're trying to think of something clever to write in the newspaper. You want to help us think of something?" Meanwhile, Bloom is like, "Hey, do you guys want to run my advertisement?" And
Got the keys.
to just
and
skip it. See, because the keys, right? Because the House of Keys.
3
but
months. I just need 3
the
months.
guy's name is Keys. So he wants the symbol on the ad of the keys. You know, like the door keys, right? It's great. You get it? And yeah. So that's his wit, right? And then no one is impressed at all. Stephen Daedalus comes in and they're like, Stephen, you're so witty. Help us write a thing for the newspaper. And so Stephen tells this fantastic parable that I'll touch on in a bit. But everyone's like, "Wow, Stephen, wow. Hey, do you want to be a published author of the newspaper? Do you want to do a column and write like short works of fiction for us?" And Stephen goes, "No, I could never. My true passion is to the art of poetry." And it like turns them down, right? Meanwhile, Bloom can only get a 2-month ad run, which his boss later says, "Well, tell them that if they won't do 3 months, then they can kiss my ass." So through Bloom's failure, we get to see Daedalus's success.
So speaking of dental floss,
Speaking of,
Speaking of,
I have some in my hand right here.
Okay,
Oh, wow.
all right.
live
This might be the
simulation.
first stream where someone flosses.
Man,
And I gotta get
found-
the corn out of my teeth.
Incredible. So, if anyone asks you, what is Chapter 7 of Ulysses about? It is about Stephen Daedalus's successful errand, contrasted with Leopold Bloom's unsuccessful one, told through some parables about the oppression of the Irish.
much to think about.
Yeah. So, then they leave the office and they go to the pub to continue their conversation. And then they leave the pub to just go to someone's house and drink, and Bloom is like, "Oh no, I can't. Would you look at the time? I gotta go back to my kidneys."
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of back and forth about how smart each other they are, about rhyming, old man.
Clever.
And then they're just
Very.
yeah, clever comma very.
Yeah.
They list some other newspapers. And again, the newspapers they did mention because Joyce is committed to realism of a sort. The Express is a tabloid. Tabloid back then meant the format of paper. Over time, it has become the sort of trash that it is today. And the Daily Express is very bad. It's a very bad newspaper. They were pro-Hitler in the 30s, so that's yeah, they were pro-Hitler in 39, so that's a very interesting stance to take. And they haven't moved leftward since.
So here's a bit of a fun passage that Joyce has for us here. The headline reads, "Rhymes and Reasons," in which Bloom attempts to reason about rhymes. He wonders, mouth, south, Is the mouth south some way? Or the south a mouth? Must be some. South, pout, out, shout, drought. Rhymes. Two men dressed the same, looking the same, 2 by 2. La toi passe, che parlar ti piace. Mentre il vento come fa si tasse.
Flawless pronunciation of French.
That's Italian.
I was going to
joke.
say.
That's the joke.
Look, I don't speak either, okay? Anyway, anyone recognize those lines?
Right. The only bit of Italian I know off the top of my head is the bit in their anthem where they talk about the Austro-Hungarian Empire, 'cause it's very funny. And 2, Dante's Inferno.
Ding,
That's
ding,
it.
ding, ding, ding. That's lines 94, 95, and 96 from Dante's Inferno, or something like that.
Because I remember later on in this chapter, they mention some Virgilian stuff, and I'm like, okay, Aeneid.
Yep. So those lines
Dante writes himself
are
insert
from
fanfic.
the original Italian of Dante's Inferno, which again kind of cements how well read Leopold Bloom is. Like, despite being a bit of a
Fucking
moron,
idiot. Yeah.
he's familiar with the writings of the Greeks, the Italians. Yeah, I mean, he's a dingus, but he knows at least some of the actual original Italian.
He's stupid, but he's got access to a library.
Yeah. Yep.
Leopold Bloom really is the modern man. Fucking idiot, but has access to the sum total of human knowledge at the click of a button.
Yeah.
At least I don't spend my days murmuring about how much I love kidneys because they taste like piss.
Oh, but I just love the taste of piss.
Turns out you can be stupid and illiterate.
And they just started like, fuck it, let's go down to the pub, lads. And then they just go.
Yeah.
And they just, a couple pages of them talk about how they're gonna go. And like there's references to other news stories of the time, which might have been more relevant to that audience than it is now. You don't have to know about it anymore.
They mention the sacking of Troy,
Yes,
a
they
thing
do.
that happened during the Odyssey and the Iliad.
Yep.
And so the chapter ends with Stephen Daedalus telling a parable, because they're like, hey, give us something witty to talk about, right? And oh, does Daedalus bring the wit. So, to sum up the parable, so there's these two young virginal ladies,
Mhm.
and they go into town together, and they buy some brawn, which Google tells me is pickled boar meat. They buy
Okay.
some brawn, and
That's one does when you're Irish.
right, and they buy 24 plums, which sounds like a lot of plums to me, but maybe
That's quite a few plums.
maybe their plums are smaller than the plums.
Yeah, no, this is
that we're
pre
used to.
Monsanto before they did some forbidden
right.
science and made them all big.
You know what? I wonder if yeah, I don't know. Anyway, they're so they sit on this bench, and they eat the boar meat, and then they eat the plums.
All of them?
All 24 plums between the two of them. They're sharing the plums.
Jesus Christ. It's a lot of fucking plums.
And
Are
they
these like grape-sized plums?
I don't know. And they spit the plum pits out on the ground,
Sure.
and then they wipe their fingers with the paper that the brawn was wrapped in, and then they throw it in the trash. You get it? It's a metaphor for the human condition.
That sounds like it's just the normal train of thought.
Yeah,
Slice-
so I read this and I was like, what the fuck is Daedalus talking about? What does that mean? Well, I looked it up. It doesn't mean anything.
Oh.
The whole point is they're like, hey, Steven, give us something clever. So Steven just makes up this cryptic parable. And it's like, this is called the parable of the ladies and the plums. And everyone's like, yes. Truly fascinating.
Yeah. There's a whole lot of waffle before this about the sophists and all these Greek orators. Again, tying this theme. The theme of this chapter, children, is the written word and the spoken word and how they play off of each other. Because, right, you've got Bloom, who's very simple, Idlis, who's very literate and very a proper orator. You've got his boss is very dumb and wildly anti-Semitic op-ed versus the speech of the guy who I think was not as wildly anti-Semitic, but still probably anti-Semitic because it's the bad times. And it's all this, yes. Very compare and contrast, doing what I think might possibly be dialectics in the actual sense and not just me saying it to sound smart. It all gets very highfalutin, and if you skip past my favorite of the headlines, which actually made me laugh for a minute straight, which was how dare these mildly rambunctious ladies, and it killed me the first time I read it, because that's the sort of joke I would write now, just have undercut it and exaggerate at the same time, which worries me that I have the exact same sense of humor as a guy who died over 100 years ago.
Eating
Not
plums,
should be worried.
Those thoughts.
But regardless,
Slightly rambunctious.
is the whole point of this little tale that he tells just to like troll the guys asking him for ideas?
Yes. Yeah.
He's flexing on them.
So
he's just to be like, I'm going to make some bullshit up, and if you guys think it has some deeper meaning, you're fucking idiots.
Yes, exactly.
Because it doesn't.
Yeah. So we've got this fun headline: Dames donate Dublin's kits, speed pills, velocitus aerolifts, belief, whatever the hell that means. And this comes right before Stephen delivering the grand finale of his parable, which I will now read aloud. It gives them a crick in their necks, Stephen said, and they are too tired to look up or down or to speak. They put the bags of plums between them and eat the plums out of it, one after another, wiping off with their handkerchiefs the plum juice that dribbles out of their mouths, and spitting the plum stones slowly out between the railings. Yeah. And then the professor's like, but what do you call it? Or no, Crawford, who's just some other guy hanging out with them, is like, what do you call it? And then the professor's like, call it Deus Nobis Haec Otia Fecit. Whatever the hell that means. Someone check the annotations for me. And then Stephen is like, no, I call it a Pisgah site of Palestine, or the parable of the plums. And then James Joyce sneezes and accidentally hits a key on the typewriter.
T.
It's
just there, menacingly.
It's on its own line and everything. Just simply a T.
What does this mean?
What does this mean? Right.
And since I mean, like, this is Stephen, right? Who is the author insert for Joyce saying,
Yes.
if you are reading too much into this,
Yeah.
I'm trolling you.
I'm
trolling you.
Yeah,
That's
right. Just like how all of Ulysses is just completely meaningless rambling with no deeper meaning whatsoever than the words presented
English
on the page.
took things over and they drink tea, so there's just a tea there for no reason because the English are just there for dumb reasons.
Right. Unlike the Irish who drink Guinness.
I don't actually know what the Irish drink.
It's Guinness.
Well, they also drink tea, but like of a
Right, I
different
thought
type.
so.
Yeah, they're probably not drinking Guinness and crumpets for tea time, but
Yeah. Yeah, it's just. Joyce took a whole chapter to say words mean things. My words don't mean things. And I did create this elaborate scenario where this is maddening to me. Yeah, but at least like it's all broken up, so it's actually readable. chapter 8 is where the struggle becomes real.
Okay, so
More
the
Latin references.
The
yeah.
Latin that the professor quotes is Latin for "God has made this peace for us." The parable being, here are some ladies that walk around town and eat some plums.
Yeah.
That's all that happens.
Yes.
Yes.
And then, okay, so a Pisgah site of Palestine refers to the vision that God grants to Moses, showing him the Holy Land. And also, Thomas Fuller's A Pisgah Site of Palestine and the Confines Thereof, with the history of the Old and New Testament acted thereon. Which, I have no idea what that is, presumably some work. Published in 1650. Which I don't know if Joyce is actually quoting, but anyway, the parable of the plums. So basically, this is just a reference to Jesus telling things through parables.
Parables, yeah.
So,
That's
like,
it.
what do you call this thing? And he's like, Moses' vision of the Holy Land. Or, Jesus' story of plums.
Yeah.
Being like, wow, look at these deep and powerful names that I'm giving it, but it doesn't mean shit.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything. It's just about the plums.
I know writers who use subtext and they're all cowards.
And then, chapter 8.
There's one final headline that I do want to read out.
That's right, I do want to read some of these headlines.
Diminished digits prove too titillating for frisky frumps. And Wimble's flow wangles. Yet, can you blame them?
A wimple is not a wangle.
What's a wimble? What's a wangle?
A wimple isn't a wangle.
Oh, I like this headline.
Horatio is cynosure this fair day. Again, and Horatio is another classical reference.
Bloom returns.
Yeah.
Right before Bloom goes back to the office.
Yeah.
So Nick, let me catch you up to speed here. So, chapter 7 of Ulysses, it was inspired by James Joyce's favorite anime, Bakemonogatari, which flashes the text on the screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they interrupt the paragraphs with these, like, headlines because Bloom is newspaper, his job is newspaper adjacent, he's thinking about newspapers and the headlines, right? So it flashes stuff on there as if it's a headline. Things like, diminished digits prove too titillating for frisky frumps. Or, Virgilian, says pedagogue, sophomore plumps for old man Moses. What do these mean? Joyce, what did you mean by this? And then there's KMA, which is right before Crawford, who is the head of the newspaper, goes, will you tell him he can kiss my arse? See, so that one, KMA, stands for kiss my arse. And then, KMRIA, which corresponds to Crawford yelling, he can kiss my Royal Irish arse. Anytime he likes, tell him. The annotations helpfully explain that kissing an arse stems from showing loyalty to Satan by kissing his ass.
Wait, what?
What?
Yep, turns out.
That's it?
Yep.
Huh.
Yep, that's the origin of the kissing of the ass.
What, like a black mass? Ridiculous.
What?
No, this.
I will read aloud
Such a
from our sacred
ridiculous-
text the Ulysses annotated notes. Kiss my arse. The way the devil's disciples demonstrated their obeisance. Obeisance?
Obedience?
No. Obeisance. Obeisance.
We need the annotations. Need annotation.
All right, Wikipedia tells me that it means deferential respect.
Right.
Okay. But Why didn't you just write that, Mr. Annotations author? You didn't have to out Joyce in the annotations, please.
Because this is written by a Joyce lover for Joyce lovers.
Oh no. By fans for fans. Oh, so it's impenetrable nonsense.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. And then I only made it like a third of the way through chapter 8 because.
Okay, so am I
Holy
the only
moly,
one
is
who
it
read the
boring.
entirety of chapter 8?
Yes.
Sick.
Well,
Chapter
you and me
8.
are the only ones that do any reading anymore.
Yep.
I do
Well,
like
reading
this
is
beginning
fun.
sentence of chapter 8. Pineapple rock, lemon plat, butterscotch. A sugar-sticky girl shoveling scoopfuls of creams for a Christian brother. Some school treat. Bad for their tummies.
Yum.
Yep. Oh, there was one other thing I wanted to talk about chapter 7.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find the passage.
Look, it's fine if we're jumping around like this. This is...
Oh, actually, there's a couple things. So, one of the headlines, Harp Aeolian. This is a reference to Aeolus. You know, because remember, the chapter is titled Aeolus. So, they're just saying, like, yeah, it's Aeolus's harp. Which, again, like, this is just Joyce putting, like, Ava levels of superficial symbolic reference. Just to be like, well, it looks cool. So, the vowel controversy.
Oh boy.
Um,
This sounds interesting.
right. So.
Is it whether or not Y is a vowel?
No. Okay. So.
About the
this-
great
this
vowel
ca-
shift?
No, this is different. So this came up when they were talking about how the Greeks were more spiritual than the Romans, and therefore the Irish more spiritual than the British. When the professor is extolling the virtues of the Greeks, a thing that seems to happen all the time in this book.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The Greek, he said, Kyrios, shining word, the vowels, the Semite and the Saxon know not. So this is talking about Omicron, if I recall correctly. Everyone's favorite Greek letter.
It's a pretty good one.
It is a pretty good one.
Omicron's in the chat.
Where is it?
Literally just an O.
Did I write the wrong page number down? Where is it?
Oh no, panic.
Oh no, panic. Anyway, basically, so there is a letter in the Greek alphabet. Here we go. Oh yeah, I totally did just write the wrong page number. The 20th letter of the Greek letter. Sorry, not Omicron. Upsilon.
Upsilon.
It is a vowel roughly in between U and Y. And neither Hebrew, which is quite limited in its vowels,
Yes.
and English, which has way more vowels than it needs to, but apparently not this one. So there is a controversy about the traditions of Greek pronunciation, which were under attack in Germany around 1880, and were about to
What?
be defended in an extraordinary outbreak at Oxford in 1905 and 1906.
He's referencing a linguistic debate among boring academics from 20 years before, 30 years before, and he felt he needed to
15
put this
years
in the
before.
novel because...
The deepest lore.
No, I'll tell you the reason. The reason is because the professor is saying, like, the Greeks, The Greeks, they have the vowels that we don't. Because this is such a non-issue that the only people that would care about it are these extremely pedantic, obsessed with the classics professors. So he's making fun of this professor character by saying he cares about Upsilon. Who the fuck cares about Upsilon? Not I, says Joyce. So it's literally because no one would care about how you pronounce Upsilon that he brings it up, right? To show the pedantry. And that, like, look, the Greeks, they had some fantastic stuff. They had some, for the time, that, you know, great literature, advancements in math and science and philosophy. No advancements whatsoever in the art of making wine, which they sucked at. But the thing that he is praising them for is not their understanding of the nature of the world or their mathematics or the other liberal arts. No. It's their diversity of vowels.
And the fact that they had Upsilon.
They had Upsilon, making them far more sophisticated than us.
I mean, yeah, English is like 3 languages in a trench coat.
Yeah, we've
But
beaten
come
up
on,
every
man.
language we've come across and stolen all of their vowels, yet somehow we are not good enough for Upsilon.
That's fine.
We'll make do without it. Extraordinary outbreak at Oxford. I want to imagine, like,
This
they
is
rise up armed with, like, rulers and textbooks and wage war against the Germans.
canes and umbrellas and
The Germans who are
must-
staunchly attacking the noble institution of the way we currently transliterate Greek.
Jesus Christ.
Fuck cares?
Who care? Who care? Who care? Who care? God. I cannot. This is the equivalent of, like, whenever some Twitter drama spills out from some obscure corner of the internet over to my timeline, and it's like, why is this here?
You know what I think is
cares?
a good analogy for this? Remember when we all said GIF?
Yeah.
And then someone came along and was like, guys, it's GIF.
GIF.
And everyone immediately was like, shut the fuck up. No,
Yeah.
it's not. I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. This, I imagine it was something like that, where everyone's like, no, guys, Upsilon.
Fellas.
You can't transliterate that to a Y. You have to transliterate that to a U. Kurios, not Kyrios. Who cares?
Leviosa.
Who cares?
Shut the fuck up,
Yeah.
Hermione. Nobody likes you. Fucking nerds. Yeah, that all happens, and then we get to chapter 8, which
You want to
I
give us a
feel-
brief overview of chapter 8? I'll pull up
Right,
the
chapter
Spark
8.
notes.
Chapter 8 is again the return of Leopold Bloom does things.
Oh boy.
This isn't as fun as the first time he does things, because he's trying to think of more serious things. And the flow, because he's constantly stuck in his own thoughts much more than he was before. There isn't this great lyrical flow as there was in chapters 5 and 6. So it's a lot slower pace. It's a lot more halting. But that's effective. It's again him running more errands, trying to hang with the boys and think of other things. But I would say, as in my professional opinion, as someone who technically has an arts degree, the pacing could use some work here, and the prose is not as masterful as it was before. I feel like this chapter could have been shortened by at least 5 pages, and not much would have been lost.
5 pages, maybe 50 pages. So here's what I do remember. So, Leopold Bloom, walking down the street, bumps into a lady who he used to court, by the name of Josie, who was married to a man who's a bit of a wackadoo. Mr. Breen received an anonymous postcard that morning, which read, U.P. up. And, yeah, like, I don't know. Does that literally just mean, like, you urinate in the upward direction? Haha, got him?
Wait, is this the letter U,
Yeah,
the letter P,
the letter U,
and then the full word up?
Yes. Yeah, that's it. So he gets that on a postcard mailed to him. And he's like, so he finds a law book and begins studying the slander or the libel laws so that he can attempt to sue this nefarious evildoer.
Who just mailed him 4 letters
Yeah.
consisting of spelling the word up and then up.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, there is no more meaning in this. Like, it's just, that's the point. It's just this absurd nonsense letter, and he's just gone off his rocker. And then Bloom sees, he sees a whole bunch of police officers leaving the police station to go walk their beats. And then he remembers this time that he watched them chase down a whole bunch of Irish students who were shouting anti-English stuff. And then the time that he got chased by a cop on a horse who was going to beat him with his baton.
Mm-hmm.
Because
so glad we're reading this escapist fiction and not at all having to confront
Yeah,
contemporary
I know.
themes. I'm glad we're just having fun reading books.
Remember that time when I protested against an oppressive government and they beat me?
Yeah, definitely.
Says Bloom. Ha 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 ha, funny fiction. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, just Bloom's thoughts here are more serious. So it's not as fun. He's thinking about, when he first met his wife. Where did his marriage go wrong?
Yeah, he thinks about life and death.
The guy has one glass of wine. The guy has one glass of wine and is like, why does my wife hate me? It's like, you're cheating on her too, bud. Like, come on. Way stream.
Yeah, you're both having affairs.
Though the thing is, by the sounds of it, I don't think Bloom is just writing love letters to some lady where his wife is absolutely fucking another man.
Yeah, possibly several men, because a lot of people just happen to make lewd jokes about his wife. Meanwhile, Bloom exchanges naughty letters, but never goes any further than that.
Yeah. He's a very sad man, in a sense.
Yeah, so this entire chapter is him wandering town, trying to find a good place to eat lunch. That's it. That's the entire chapter. Nothing else happens.
Yeah, he has some fun jokes about food, about thinking, how the fuck those Catholics feed anyone. I like them see try to do Yom Kippur.
Oh,
like owning them.
Because the Catholics,
they take that be fruitful and multiply it ridiculously, literally.
Yeah, they have too many kids, so they're always hungry. And then, he references Yom Kippur, which, for those of you who are not familiar, Yom Kippur is a Jewish holiday, in English known as the Day of Atonement, where you fast for a day to atone for the sins that you have committed that year. And then you do a bunch of praying, where you're like, thanks God for giving me the commandments that I may follow, and I'll do better next year. And it's part of the New Year's celebration. Anyway, so Bloom's father was Jewish, even though Bloom himself is not. So he is still familiar with the practices of Judaism.
Right, because it's in your mitochondria, right?
Right, yeah. Well, actually, that makes him not Jewish, because it's passed by the mother. Yeah, matrilineally.
Yes.
So.
Yeah,
Also, he thinks about this time that he had sex with his wife. And by sex, it's she like fed him a biscuit that like she bit into the biscuit, and then like he also bit into the biscuit that she was holding in her mouth,
Oh, naughty.
which is
Hot.
just scandalous.
I mean, yeah, this was considered obscenity back in the 20s
This book was
stateside.
banned for being obscene.
Yeah. I mean, this is the 20s, which is one of the more conservative periods in this country's history. We banned drinking, for God's sake, at the same time. So, just like this is the fact that he's not even thinking about cheating on his wife in this scene that got the book banned. He's just thinking back, you know, that wife that I am
Remember
married
that time
to
I had
and
sex
consented.
with my wife once? Way back in the day.
Whoa there. It's insane how media censorship works. He continues to think. This is where we do get to bring back, before we get too sad with Bloom's sad thoughts, we can bring back our favorite segment, Leopold Bloom is wrong about everything.
Leopold Bloom is wrong about everything. Leopold Bloom has the incredible realization that barbed wire was invented by a nun.
What?
No, barbed wire was not invented
No.
by a nun. I had to look this
Why
up.
does he think that?
I don't know why he thinks that, but he thinks it. It's not
Did he just
true.
come up with that idea? There's no like convoluted chain of logic to lead him to the conclusion. Maybe it was invented by a nun. He's just like, no,
No,
it was
no,
invented
he's like,
by a nun.
He's like,
sure.
it was invented by a nun. I heard. Yeah, I don't know where he got that from.
Who did invent barbed wire? For what it's worth?
American farmers.
Yeah,
They
it
keep
was
the
kind
cattle
of
out.
like invented by a number of different people all around the same time independently, where they realized, what if I put some pokey stuff on the wire fence so that the cows stop knocking it over?
And that worked.
Yep, worked pretty
Yeah.
well. Here we go. So he's thinking about, he sees these ladies. He's thinking about some nuns. That was a nice nun there.
The nuns who invented
Really
barbed
sweet
wire.
face. Wimple suited her small head. Sister? Sister? I am sure she was crossed in love by her eyes. Very hard to bargain with that sort of a woman. I disturbed her at her devotions that morning, but glad to communicate with the outside world. Our great day, she said, feast of Our Lady of Mount Carmel. Sweet name, too, Caramel. She knew I think she knew by the way she, full stop. If she had married, she would have changed. I suppose they really were short of money. Fried everything in the best butter all the same. No lard for them. My heart's broke eating dripping. They like buttering themselves in and out. Molly tasting it. Molly is his wife?
Daughter.
Daughter? Wife? Daughter? Which one is it? Brandon, which one is it?
I don't think
Molly
it matters
is his
anymore.
daughter. His wife is Millie, short for Milford.
Right. Okay.
Short for MILF. Molly tasting it, her veil up. Sister? Pat Claffey, the pawnbroker's daughter. It was a nun, they say, invented barbed wire. It just comes out of nowhere. Who says
Yeah.
that? Who says that, Bloom? Who says that?
Who? Who's saying hypothetically for the
Citation needed.
sake of argument here?
Everyone's saying it.
People are saying, many are saying this.
Yeah.
Like his thought process is like when a sketchy news site like deliberately looks for a couple of random people on Twitter saying
You mean
something,
when
and then they
make
write an article
their
saying
own hot tweets
many are
to
saying
report on?
this.
Yeah.
It's like no,
And
you had to go
and they
looking
linked to
for
the
this.
one tweet that
Yeah.
said it.
Yeah, it's great. Democracy dies in darkness. He just goes back, just pivots away from that, and then
Yeah.
he just,
Oh,
just
okay. It's
continues
not-
to think more about
Okay, alright.
ah,
Marion, not Milford. I don't know where I got Milford. Marion is the wife.
Speaking of milks.
Marion is the wife. Marion, aka Molly, the wife. Millicent, aka Millie, the daughter.
Yeah.
I will forget this for next episode.
Oh, absolutely. talking about a clubbing night. Okay, so she's in a veil and they're at a cathedral. Is
That
that
must be the wedding night.
it's either wedding or it's not. I don't remember. The one before wedding, not christening.
The one before wedding?
Confirmation. Confirmation.
Oh, I thought you were going for like a
No, not baptism.
bachelor party.
No. I think
That's
it's
the one
either the
before
wedding
wedding.
or it might be a confirmation. It's just more Catholic bullshit. Just ignore it like everyone else does. It's just another way to spend 3 hours in a cathedral and fall asleep in the back. He thinks more about. And I was like, wow, now they have pictures. Back then they only had daguerreotypes. And I'm like, wow, cool, Bloom. Technology is progressing. And he even just goes stream of life. And he just starts listing off events that have happened.
Oh, there was
Say-
another fantastic thing. that
Heaven's
he,
Parade,
He was talking about. Let me see if I can.
Reject modernity.
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 Maternity.
Yeah. Brandon went on and on about his rejecting of modernity, and I thought he was saying maternity every time, and I'm like.
I know I slur my words, but it's not that bad. I know it's not that bad.
No. I just forgot that modernity was a word. Anyway, here's another dumb fucking thing that comes into Bloom's head. So everyone knows how octopi have two heads, right?
Of course.
Wait, what?
Of the two-headed octopus, one of whose heads is the head upon which the ends of the world have forgotten to come, while the other speaks with a Scotch accent. The tentacles. ...
What?
Yeah, it just sort of ends.
Of the two-headed octopus, one of whose heads is the head upon which the ends of the world have forgotten to come, while the other speaks with a Scotch accent. The tentacles. They passed from behind Mr. Bloom along the curbstone, beard and bicycle, young woman. And there he is too. Now that's really a coincidence. Second time. Coming events cast their shadows before, with the approval of the eminent poet, Mr. Geo. Russell. That might be Lizzie Twig with him. A.E. What does that mean? Initials, perhaps. Albert Edward. Arthur Edmund. Alphonsus Eb Ed L Esquire. What was he saying? The ends of the world with a Scotch accent. Tentacles. Octopus. Something occult. Symbolism.
Yeah.
Symbolism.
I think to translate this from Joyce to human English, I'm going with there's a woman walking with a man who is telling her about something, and Bloom is overhearing the conversation. And I think it's literally that meme that's going around now of like the guy in the sunglasses, like with the hand behind the lady's neck, and he's like got his hand up in front of her, and everybody's just do like he's like explaining something to her.
Oh yeah, the guy at the party thing.
The Oakleys and
I shit you not. He turned himself into a goddamn pickle. That one?
yeah, stuff like that. And then he just keeps going.
So hang on.
So vegetarianism, sure. Only vegetables and fruit. Don't eat a beefsteak. If you do, the eyes of that cow will pursue you through all eternity. They say it's healthier. Wind and watery, though. Try it. Keep you on the run all day. Bad as a bloater. Dreams all night. Why did they call that thing they gave me nut steak? Nutarians. Fruitarians. To give you the idea you're eating rump steak. Absurd. They cook in soda.
So hang on. Before we move on, what the fuck was that about with octopuses? One of the heads speaking Scottish?
I don't know. It's just happening.
Does the annotations provide any insight to what that means?
The annotations do not mention it.
Of course not.
Cool.
I think what's actually happening is that he's hearing a conversation that's like across the street on a busy road, and he's mishearing it, and it's just getting
wildly
nonsense.
misunderstanding.
I didn't know you could fail a game of telephone playing by yourself, but here we are.
Yeah.
Uh.
What? Octopus?
Oh man, be sure to get your Google box.
Yeah.
What?
Sure. And then he's like, maybe artists eat so weird because that's how they become artistic. And he's like, you see, because right, all these poets have all like these restrictive diets, as opposed to like policemen sweating Irish Jew into their shirts. You couldn't squeeze a line of poetry out of them. Sure, that's a theory. Nothing more ridiculous than game theory. So, and he keeps going. He sees a guy, then he sees another guy, and he's like, that reminds me, I got to get my fixed. He just sort of keeps going. Then he just sort of plays with the sun. He looks at the sun.
So
he puts his hand in front of his face and wiggles his fingers in front of the sun and goes,
So he
How
was
could the sun
he
do
was
this to
thinking
us?
about parallax as he was walking down the street.
Parallax scrolling.
Parallax,
He's a big
what
fan of
is parallax
Sega Genesis
anyway?
games.
How does that stuff work?
Blast processing.
Yeah.
Yeah, blast processing. The programmers work very hard to make the background slides.
Yeah. And he does the thing where he covers up the sun with a finger. Man, ain't that crazy?
Yeah, that's crazy. Damn, Bloom,
Wild.
you're a guy.
And so Bloom works in advertising, right? And so he
Yes, he
walks
does.
past
As we've
a
established.
company that he used to work for, or a business that he used to work for, and he sees. So they've got just a bunch of people who they're each wearing like one of those what they call the sandwich boards, right? Where you've got like the board on either side of you.
And you're just a sign.
Yeah.
You're just
so,
holding a
so
sign.
each of them has a letter of the name, and they're like marching down the street in order. Except one of them is like lagging behind and is like munching on some bread from his pocket. And
Okay.
it's spelling out the name of the store. It's like Molly's or Mallay's or something like that. Wally's, I don't remember. Bloom
Wally
is thinking
World.
about how like, man, it's a stationary store, right? And so he's thinking about how he used to work there.
Stationery is in it sells like paper and stuff.
Yeah.
An
Sells
E.
paper and ink.
Stationery with
and
an E.
stuff. Yeah. So he's thinking about how he had this great idea for an advertisement where they would have this cart. They would push around a cart, but it would be like a see-through cart, and inside the cart would be a lady writing things with their writing supplies, and everyone would be like, "Wow, look at the lady in the cart. What's she writing? I want to buy the same ink as her." And they
Girl in
laughed
the
at
cart,
him.
what will she
They
write?
laughed at him. They wouldn't run his ad
Yeah.
because it's dumb. See, no, because like keys, like the House of Keys, right? Like the key and the lock and the key. You get it?
I'm beginning to think that he's very much like the Mr. Madman who doesn't have any good ideas on his own.
Yeah.
The thing is, he does know things. That's the thing. He knows enough to get by, but not really. He doesn't know about anything. He knows of things, like about how the ball falls at Greenwich time. There's a ball at Greenwich Observatory that falls at 1 o'clock.
What?
It's a ball on a stick,
What?
and it falls.
Oh yeah, that thing.
Yes.
Wait,
it's-
what?
Oh, that! I have actually heard of that.
fuck?
Yeah.
Greenwich Observatory.
Are you guys
is-
pulling an epic prank on me?
No.
Okay, let me explain. Let me speak. Greenwich Observatory. That's where they get Greenwich Mean Time. That is where all the clocks in the world. That's where time zones.
That's where
move forward
time
and
was
back from.
invented.
That's where. Yes.
Pretty
Time
much,
was-
actually.
At 1 o'clock, right? There is a ball on a stick that drops at precisely a thing, and that ball is for ships on the River Thames to sync their chronometers before they go out on a long journey. Because you can sort of make it out. If you see the big ball on a stick, you can set your ship's clock, and then you can
Fuck
do
is this
navigation.
shit?
Yeah,
A
the time ball.
is an
The time
obsolete
ball.
time signaling device. It consists of a large painted wooden or metal ball that is dropped at a predetermined time. Huh.
It's the balls of Lord Kronos himself.
And they just have a
Is that where the
person
P
like
is
pull the
stored?
rope to drop the ball.
Well, mechanically, yeah, it's all. Yeah, this was much more interesting in the Victorian era to have a ball drop every day at 1 o'clock. This was much more impressive back
They
then.
have fucking
did-
church
they did-
bells.
Yeah,
yeah,
it
but that
required a
wasn't
fucking
precise enough.
observatory to do that.
Yeah.
The
like,
church
you'd
bells
have
are
to
not
have-
precise enough, so they
Well,
must
you need
simply
someone to
drop
run
a
up there.
large red ball.
For church bells, you need someone to run up there, and he's like, "Yeah, it's about right now," and he'll ring the bells. But if you want to actually set a ship's chronometer correctly, you want to make sure it's fucking accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. So he knows about the time ball, but
Damn, he knows more than I do.
yeah, right. And
And
then
I
he,
have
but he's
access
like,
to Wikipedia.
and then he starts thinking
Yet
about
he thought that
gas
a nun
balls.
invented barbed wire.
About a gas ball that just becomes solid, then becomes the world, then it becomes cold, then it becomes a pineapple rock, the moon. Must be a new moon, she said. I believe
fuck?
there is. Sure. Wait, the full moon was the night we were Sunday fortnight, exactly. New moon. Do. Walking down by the Tolka, not bad for a Fairview moon. She was humming. The young May moon, she just goes on and on and on. And then he lists a bunch of people who I don't know about. Pat Kinsella, Dion Buicois. He just thinks about things. And then he goes back. And then he just hits. Then he's like, "What? Huh? I was happier then, or was that I, or am I now I? 28 I was. She was 23. Like, oh shit, Blue, you want to talk? Want to need a minute,
You doing
bro?
all right, buddy? You want a drink? You want
He just keeps thinking about. It's like and he's scolding himself that he isn't happy in his marriage. And this is,
Why isn't he happy in his marriage? Like, he's got this smoking hot wife. He's got...
But she fucks other men that aren't him.
Probably because he doesn't have a big enough dick.
Probably the lingering piss smell in his mouth from all the kidney.
Yeah, it's because his diet consists entirely of kidneys. No amount of carrying soap around all day in your pocket will mask that scent.
He thinks about stuff. Maybe he should get a pin cushion. He's basically sort of at this point. The chapter is kind of shifting to him seeing things in the present and then having little flashbacks. Like he hears some high pitched voice and he's like, "Oh god, all this stuff for a woman, Jaffa cakes and again, more British things. It's weird." Forbidden place. I'm not sure it's actually real. And he's like, I should eat something. Then he sees a couple in love. Then he spots a restaurant. Then Joyce spends a paragraph describing other people eating at a restaurant. Just people eating food. A tumbler knife fork.
Joyce doesn't want to go to the meat restaurant, even though he likes meat. Because, like, people eat too much meat there, so he goes to, like, the salad restaurant to eat salad instead.
He doesn't go to fucking Outback. He goes to Sweet Tomatoes. That's a local joke for that.
I like Sweet Tomatoes. It's good pizza. Have you ever been there? Have you ever gotten their pizza?
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah. I mean, I usually just go for the soup. I fucking love me some chowder, and the ice cream machine because they will. When you're a child, you're like, oh, ice cream buffet? Yes, please, yum yum.
This episode sponsored by Sweet Tomatoes Pizzeria.
Yeah.
Down on
Buffalo Wild Wings
Wickham, is it?
Who else? So we're sponsored by them. We're sponsored by Buffalo Wild Wings. Who was the one who's also sponsoring us at the top of the episode?
Sponsored.
It's not good if we can't remember from stuff from an hour ago.
My brain is full of Ulysses. Sponsored by Oh God, what are the things called? The terrible plastic figurines.
Funko Pops.
Funko Pops. Yeah, sponsored by Funko Pop. Yeah, my mind somehow like saved me from the knowledge of Funko Pops. Briefly.
Yeah, so it goes from that, and then
there's only brief respite.
Yeah.
Rapid shift to history of Ireland. Sure, last pagan king of Ireland. Okay, and then while he's thinking of that, while also ordering his food, and his drink, and it's just ramming knifefuls of cabbage down. His life depended on it, and he's complimenting the other people's eating habits and their mastery of cutlery. It's just Joyce absolutely loves describing everything in excruciating detail.
He really
And
does have
it's
a
starting to wear
obsession.
thin at this point. Like
yeah, chapter 8 kind of
it's
went
starting
on
to
for
wear
too
on
long.
me.
Chapter 8 felt like when I got to like book 5 of the Hitchhikers series, and it's just like
Woof.
this is just
Yeah.
still going.
Why are there 5 chapters about cricket? What is cricket? I don't know. I'm an American. I play real sports.
Yeah, I had no fucking idea what cricket was when I read that, so I was so confused.
Wasn't the pun for the entire like third or fourth book?
Yeah, that there was these species called the
Just-
crickets that
And
play
just like the
cricket.
entire
See-
their entire race was just a reference to cricket, but it's actually the other way around that humans accidentally just referenced.
No, get it? Because
This
House
tragedy.
of Keys? Because his name is Keys? Anyway, I think that
I don't
that
hear
about,
much economics going on, but
that
okay.
about wraps up this episode of Book Club.
Yeah, he eats. The other guys stay up. They say the N word, so that's cool.
Real gamer moment.
Gamer moment.
Yeah. They talk about food while they're eating food. They talk about other fellas. I'm speeding through this because we want to get to the interesting part, which is after Leopold Bloom leaves. He exits stage left, exuent, chased by a bear. The bear is a metaphor for nothing. And then all the other characters talk shit about Leopold Bloom and how they all don't like him. Like it is effectively like 15 pages of like that very first Peanut strip where like Charlie Brown's walking by and the other kid's like, "That's Charlie Brown. Good old Charlie Brown. Look at that Charlie Brown go. I hate Charlie Brown." And then, yeah, that's it. You don't have to read the book now. You did it. I did it for you. I remember it, so you don't have to.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you for your service.
I am braver than the troops.
Guess who just came by?
Yeah, that's it.
All right, that's
Eat
it,
dinner.
folks.
Wrap it
See
up,
you next
please.
week.
Like, comment, subscribe.